Good morning, Changemakers, and welcome to the first episode of the Environmental Changemakers series, brought to you by Environmental Scouts. You are no doubt joining us to hear from the amazing Piper Wood, founder of Hand in Paw Dog Rescue in Los Angeles. Piper will share her story with us in just a few minutes. Hers is really a story of love, compassion, and lots of hard work. And her story is also the story of so many precious furry friends that I know you'll fall in love with like I did. I am Adriana Glazner, co-founder of Environmental Scouts. I'm a mom, an education consultant, and today mostly I'm just a proud teacher. Environmental Scouts is the vision of one of my students. With the help of her supportive parents, Brooke's idea for an environmental club for kids quickly grew into an opportunity to connect individual changemakers and nonprofit organizations to share their educational resources for an amplified impact. Our Environmental Changemakers series is our first labor of love to achieve that major goal. We want each of you to see that you're part of a coalition of partners worldwide, whether it be nonprofit organizations, NGOs, youth changemakers, youth clubs, or individual kids and adults who are ready to be the change. There are so many groups and individuals already doing the work. There are fantastic materials and initiatives just waiting to be discovered. So we proudly bring you the Environmental Changemakers series to amplify those voices and to help you find yours. So whether your cause is wildlife conservation, plastic pollution, climate change, or animal rescue, the earth needs you. Please like this video and subscribe below. You can also find us on social media. Facebook, we are at Environmental Scouts, and Instagram, we are at EnviroScoutsLA. That's ENVIRO Scouts LA. You can find Hand in Paw Rescue on Facebook at Hand Paw Rescue and on Instagram at Hand in Paw. I'd like to introduce you now to someone very special. This is Brooke Thorman, the youngest co-founder and inspiration behind Environmental Scouts. Brooke is a 10-year-old environmental activist and animal lover, and she also happens to be one of my students. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here today.
Yay. Congratulations on Environmental Scouts and on the Environmental Changemakers series. I happen to know that today's topic is very special to you. Can you tell us briefly why this particular episode is so important?
I just like to thank Mrs. Wood so much for speaking today in this talk. I'm really excited about the next 2 weeks because that's when all the talks will happen. I just felt like this is a really important topic because I always love to rescue animals in need. In fact, we just got a rescue shepherd, and I just think that this is a really important topic around the world because there are lots of homeless dogs that are sick and they don't have any medical care. And I just felt like I really like this cause. So I'm really excited about today's talk.
Thank you, Brooke. My own rescue dog wants to say hi for a minute. So if you hear Romeo, he's checking out the world outside. Hey, come here, bud. Come on. Good boy. All right. Thank you so much, Brooke, and thank you, Romeo. We appreciate you too. Joining us today is the very talented, compassionate, and inspirational Piper Wood, founder of Hand in Paw Animal Rescue, based here in Los Angeles. Joining Piper is Jordan Radnati, one of Hand in Paw's volunteers and foster parents. Just a little bit of background, Hand in Paw is an organization dedicated to the rescue, rehabilitation, and adoption. Hi, buddy. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, someone's got to say hi. Come here. Want to say hi? Oh boy. Okay, come here. Mama's doing something important. You want to watch? Sweet. All right. Hand in Paw is an organization dedicated to the rescue, rehabilitation, and adoption of abandoned, homeless, and abused dogs and cats. Hand in Paw believes that there's a special bond, that's right, between animals and humans that can be nurtured through foster and adoption. Hand in Paw seeks to educate the public about ways they can help these dogs and cats and speak out against overpopulation. Hand in Paw rescues within and outside of the United States. Piper has rescued dogs from as far as Mexico, Egypt, and China. And Eagle Rock, right? And Eagle Rock. Piper is here today to share her story and the dog's journey. Her passion and expertise will open our eyes to steps that we can take, not just to help animals in need, but to avoid the irresponsible practices that have led to their plight. So we know you'll be inspired by these sweet souls. So without further ado, and without any more help from my friend, Piper Wood.
I guess that means I'm on. I couldn't hear anything, but thank you so much, Adriana and Brooke, for having me, and Jordan. We're really excited to be here. It's really awesome what you guys are doing. I started Hand and Paw about 8 years ago, and I want to tell you just a quick story about how it started. I had a regular life. I used to be a police officer. I was a chef, and I was also a behavioral therapist. So I had my own careers, and I kind of fell into this on accident. I didn't really know the extent of homelessness for animals anywhere. I had picked up strays all my life, but I didn't understand that this situation was so much bigger than I could have ever imagined. So one day I was on Facebook and I saw a post about a dog that was going to be put to sleep at the shelter, and I had never seen a post like that in my life. So I looked at the comments and there were 5,000 comments, and this dog had a couple of hours. It was at the Orange County shelter. I saw 5,000 comments of people saying, somebody do something, somebody save this dog, and nobody was actually stepping up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't need another dog. I already have 3 dogs, but could I do something? Yeah, okay, yeah, I will. I'm gonna go down to the shelter. I'm gonna get this dog. So I ended up going down there. It was a little senior Chihuahua. He had a deformed leg. And so I went down and I got him. And when I got there, the vet at the shelter said, you should just put this dog down. He doesn't really, can't use his leg, and his quality of life may not be that great. And I said, no way, I'm going to take him home and I'm going to see what I can do. So I got his leg amputated, and here he is 8 years later. He's the dog that started it all for me. So from there, it kind of snowballed into people sending me more dogs. And then I would take another dog and find it a home, fix it up. And after about 4 months, I got my 501c3 and I quit my job, and and this became my life. And I had no idea that shelters were killing, just in the US alone, about 4 million animals per year. And that's crazy. And the reason that happens is because well, many things. There are tons of strays on the streets. People aren't spaying and neutering their dogs. And in some areas, they don't really take precautions to keep their dogs indoors to where they can't get out and mate with other dogs on the street. So we have so many unwanted dogs. Another reason is that people who take dogs in aren't really fit owners for these dogs. I have been to the shelter when a family will bring in their senior dog that's, say, 15 years old, and say, my dog's too old, I don't want it anymore. And then they'll walk out with a puppy. And I think that's just, these are not things. These are beautiful lives that deserve happiness. And over the years, my rescue has sort of evolved from taking these, well, when I do go to the shelter, I tend to take the sickest, or the one that's been there the longest, the oldest. Literally, these dogs have nobody and not one person that cares for them. And you'll see later on in the slideshow that these dogs become someone else's world. And I think that's so important to understand, that these dogs deserve a chance no matter what, no matter how they look, or how they act, or how sick they are. They can all make that transformation. In rare cases, they won't. But, Peanuts, after 8 years, he's still doing awesome. And he's like probably 14 or 15. And he's missing a leg, but he gets around like any other dog. So, yeah. So I started, working primarily with shelters. And then I started growing more and more, and people would call me and say, can you take my dog? I don't want it anymore. Can you take this dog that's my neighbor's, it's being abused? You know, so many different situations. And then I started learning about the dogs in other countries, and the situation just got even more desperate. And it's kind of hard for me, at least it used to be extremely hard to find that balance in my life, because I felt like every single dog that was sent to me on social media, I felt responsible for. And so when you're getting tagged in like 200 dogs a day and you feel like you can't save them all, it affects you emotionally. But I had to sort of separate myself and say, you know, I can only do what I can. I have to save one dog at a time, and obviously not all of them will be saved, but I have to be content with that, because even when I go to the shelter and I take 4 or 5 dogs out, I would be feeling upset about the ones that I didn't take and the ones that won't get a chance. And you know, it weighs heavy on my heart, and it weighs heavy on me every day. But when I started learning about the dogs in Mexico, the dogs in China, the dogs in Iran, pretty much any other country, third world countries in particular, it's really horrible. They don't have the laws to protect the dogs. The dogs we get from Tijuana are often mutilated. They've been just so abused. They treat the dogs like they're rodents. In Iran, they actually outlawed walking your dog in public. And the reason they do that is to discourage people from even having dogs. And in China and Iran, they'll go to your door and they'll say they need to take your dog to get it vaccinated, and they'll never return back to the dog. They steal the dogs and they kill them. Obviously in China and other countries, they use them for the meat trade. So there's a lot going on, and you know, people ask me why I venture outside of even California, because Los Angeles has a pretty big problem, and it's just, once you see something, you just can't turn a blind eye anymore. So we really, you know, on top of saving the dogs, we really try to match them up with a perfect family. And so I feel like it's just as much helping the families that we find these dogs for as it is the dogs. And these dogs really do add so much to your life. Yeah, I would like to show you a few before and afters of some dogs. The first one we're going to start with is Becker, and I'm showing you him because he came from the divorce shelter, and that's his before picture, and he was super depressed, as you can see, and his skin was horrible. He was covered in ticks. He had a really bad skin infection, and this is a dog that I don't know if he'd been out very long. He was just kept in someone's backyard, but he ended up at the shelter, and I just fell in love with that face. And we treated him for several months, and then he ended up getting adopted, and you can see that he looks like a completely different dog now in the next slide. He has an awesome family. It's like, it's so cool to see that. So that's an example of a shelter dog that nobody wanted. That was his last day at the shelter. I mean, these shelters really don't give a lot of time. We always, I don't know, growing up, I always thought shelter was a safe place. Even people now, they'll come and say, I'm just take the dog to shelter, that's a safe place. And I'll tell you why it's not. Not only do they run out of room, and you know, it's not the shelter's fault, it's people's fault. People will say, oh, these shelters are murderers, but they can only do so much. They only have so much space. And the other reason why it's dangerous, I mean, yes, the dogs get food, shelter, water. The dogs get sick pretty quickly, and it's typically kennel cough, but it can progress into pneumonia very, very quickly. So most of the dogs that we get from the shelter end up getting pneumonia. The shelters will not treat these extensive injuries. Say if the dog is hit by a car, it has parvo, distemper, you know, any sort of severe injury, they will just euthanize the dog. So, you know, it's really important for us rescues to step up and get these dogs out. So The next dog I would like to talk about is Dolly. So on the left side, that's where she was found. She was found in a dirt road in Tijuana, obviously very, very starved. You can't really see the right picture very well, but she had holes in the top of her mouth, just a deformity, and her teeth were all rotten. She has that one little tusk sticking out there, and she also had distemper, which is it's a neurological. It eventually affects the neurological system, but she has a constant tick. Somehow she survived distemper. It usually kills every dog that it affects, but she had distemper, and so she has this constant tick with her mouth, which you can't see. But we had to close up her mouth, pull most of her teeth out, and yeah, she is doing really awesome. She has a home now with 3 other hand and paw dogs in Arizona, and she gained a lot of weight, but she's really happy, and she always has her tongue out. She's in her mouth. It's a little funny. And the next one I want to talk about is Bonsai. So Bonsai was super abused on the streets of Tijuana. Someone poured boiling water on him. Someone beat him to the point that his spine was broken. He had all kinds of, tick fever. His organs were shutting down. Actually, when we got him off the street, we didn't think he was going to make it through the night. He couldn't even stand up. But after several months, doing physical therapy with his back and treating his skin, he's still blind in one eye, but that's fine. He got adopted to a really, really awesome home, and you'll see now he looks completely different. In the next slide, there you go. Yeah, he looks like a golden retriever husky. He's super cute. So those are 2 examples of dogs that we got in Mexico, and that's pretty much par for the course for the dogs in Mexico or any other country that we get dogs from. They're in horrible shape, and I typically take about, I would say, 50 dogs from Mexico per year. It's especially with the pandemic, it's a lot easier to get them from Mexico than from the shelters, because the shelters are pretty much shut down and really hard to work with. So, and the Mexico dogs need help so much. So, yeah, we try to get as many as we can from there. We have actually 4 or 5 more coming next week. So that's Bonsai. And lastly, so this is Army, and this is an example of a stray. However, I don't think he was a stray for very long. I think that this is a neglect case, and they finally let him go, or he escaped. I'm not really sure. But when we got him, I couldn't believe it. It's kind of hard to tell the detail in that last picture, but his skin was like, I mean, you couldn't even touch it. It was like a desert floor. It was just cracked and bleeding. You can see that his teeth are showing. That's not a smile or a snarl. That is because his skin was so tight that his lips were pulled back, and you'll see that his eyes are also pulled back. He couldn't blink at all. He had to sleep with his eyes open. His eyes were constantly watering. I mean, it was just like, that really bothered me, to know that he couldn't close his eyes, and I just can't imagine the discomfort on top of everything else. So we treated him for months and months. He had a fungal infection. I mean, this is something really simple that could have been treated, but it wasn't treated. And there was a cruelty investigation for him, a task force that didn't find anything, but unfortunately, these things happen more than you know, and it's really sad. A couple weeks ago, we got a little puppy that was thrown away in a dumpster. Like, I mean, and this happens all the time. So the ones that we happen to get are so lucky, but they're just probably thousands or millions that are never found. So there's a lot of suffering, and I'm just happy that we at least got Army and we could transform him. He's super happy now. He has a home. He's even growing hair back. This is still about a month ago. He has grown in like a full orange coat. So he's doing awesome. Those are just 3 examples of our different situations that we get our dogs from. And yeah, it's really awesome that we get to do this. But the most important part of our organization is fostering. And if it's okay, if I can bring in Jordan now.
Yes,
Is that
please.
cool? I can't hear you at all. I'm sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So when I first started, the Red Naughty family adopted, they adopted a dog for me. And soon after that, they started fostering. And like I said, fostering is the most valuable resource we have because it's such an advantage for these dogs over a shelter, because the shelter dogs, they're emotionally stressed all the time in the shelter. It's loud. They don't get the affection they need. They don't get the training they need. And a foster home is literally like their family until they get adopted. And so they learn basic manners. They learn socialization. They receive that love they need. And it just prepares them for a home. So Jordan and her family have been fostering now for pretty much the whole time that I have been here. I would say a year and maybe 7 years. So she's fostered like hundreds of dogs. They're my number 1 foster family for sure. So I don't know, do you have a question for Jordan, or Jordan, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience over the last 7 years?
Yeah. So yeah, we're coming up on 8 years of fostering dogs. We've had a lot of dogs, and I think we've adopted 4 rescues now, from Hand and Paw. And just fostering has taught me, and as well as my family, a lot. It's taught us a lot of responsibility and patience. And it's a really like amazing experience and opportunity. And I'm so lucky to be able to foster dogs. And it's pretty much like, yeah, I'm really just lucky. We're a small piece of this like big, beautiful puzzle, so it's really cool.
Yeah. And one other thing, it's our responsibility to rescue dogs and not buy them, because with that number that I threw out earlier, the 4 million a year, I mean, you can literally find any type of dog in a shelter or a rescue. There are breed specific rescues, and you know, that little puppy that I got from the dumpster a few weeks ago is a purebred little mini poodle, like a teacup poodle. And just goes to show, like, there are people that are irresponsibly breeding, and I don't know why they would throw this puppy away for whatever reason, but every type of dog needs help. And so I just ask that people come into getting a dog with an open mind. I know that sometimes people have a dog that they want based purely on looks. A lot of people want huskies, and then they realize they're a lot of work. The coat, the exercise, and so many huskies end up in the shelter now because they don't get enough exercise and they jump the fence and whatever. So people want these breeds that look good to them, but they're not really thinking about the characteristics of that breed. And what's most important is the personality and the love that they're going to give you. I mean, the way a dog looks is not going to make your life better, I don't think. And so I don't know, a few times I've had people come into my adoption events, and one family in particular asked me for a husky puppy. And I said, I don't have any husky puppies, but I do have this Chihuahua. And they held him and they fell in love with him and they took him home. And like, that's amazing. I think that's so cool that this family was open to it, and they realized, like, yeah, this was a better match. And I'm found that over the last 8 years, I've become pretty good at matching people with the right dog. And so it's really great when people trust me with that process. 'Cause I know what I'm doing. And yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you both so much. I have a couple of questions, and then I know Brooke does as well. But I wanted to start with Jordan. Jordan, earlier Piper said that for her it was hard to find the balance in the responsibility that she felt for all of these dogs that needed help. And we obviously know that one person or a handful of people can't do it all, just like your family cannot foster every dog that needs love and a family. So how do you sort of navigate those emotions as a young person of wanting to help and perhaps getting overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem? How do you stay in the moment and in what control you have over the situation?
Well, yeah, it's it's like super easy to become just like, you have this feeling you want to help like every animal you see, but of course that's not possible. But we can only like we can work with the most that we've got, and like it's easy to become like kind of attached to dogs, but um I think just looking at the bigger picture, like these dogs are getting help or these animals are getting help, and that's better than just like um, where they would be. And then just knowing that uh, fostering them and just taking care of them so that they can find a better home or like a better life. And it's just, it's, it's really good just to like know and think ahead, like it's going to be better than yeah, it's like hard to explain it, but
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I totally get it. I'm a doggy person. Piper, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. So, I get a lot of people who say they would like to foster, but they're just so scared to fall in love with a dog, and they don't want to get attached. And so I get that. And there are two things. One, fine, go ahead and adopt the dog. That happens all the time. Like my parents have adopted 4 of their fosters. Big deal. Like, great. And so have the Rad Naughties. They've foster failed like 4 times. So that's great. But the thing is that this situation is so much bigger than all of us, and we need to put that emotion aside. If we're not able to keep the dog, like, you just need to, I don't know, like, you need to realize that this is really important, and it's better than a dead dog, because you are truly saving a life. I cannot take any dogs unless I have a foster for that dog. So you're being a lifesaver, and that's what's most important.
So, Brooke, have you and your family ever had an opportunity? I know you've rescued a dog. Did you foster him first?
No. Well, actually, we had 2 females. The first one, my mom got before I was born, and she was a rescue. She's a crazy mix. We were never able to find out what she was, but there were so many. And actually, our rescue that we just got, she was found in the middle of a desert under a trailer with 6 of her siblings and her mom. She was still nursing, so she was blind, she was tiny, they were skinny, because if their mom didn't eat, she would soon run out of milk and she wouldn't be able to feed her puppies, and therefore they would die. So it was really sad. We saw a picture, and it's like seeing her. When we met her, she was so small and she didn't make sounds at all. She was just really scared. And now she's a completely different dog. She's so active. She's constantly wanting to go out for jogs. She's constantly wanting to play. She's jumping on us. She's grabbing our legs, and it's just I just like the feeling that we are helping the dogs that need help. It's just
you sure are. I know that.
Feels good.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. Piper and Jordan, before we lost you there for a second, we were talking about those people out there that might not be doggy people, like all of us clearly are, and wondering if fostering is for them, what would you say to families who are wondering sort of what skills or what the maybe the long-term benefits even for their children would be in terms of the responsibility gained or other benefits that you see from fostering dogs?
Well, there are health benefits. Being exposed to dogs at a young age is more beneficial to a child's health. So there's that. And just learning to have compassion and kindness for an animal that has never experienced that. So I think it's a really good lesson, and obviously responsibility too. Are you asking they're not dog people, like they don't like dogs? I mean, not don't like dogs, but don't want a dog, but they want to help?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering about, there's obviously people that, I mean, first of all, I don't trust people that aren't dog people, but besides that, just in terms of expanding our net of potential foster families, if someone's like, oh yeah, we're not really dog people, like maybe this isn't for us. I think it's important to realize that the benefits go both ways. It's not just about helping the dog, but like you can actually teach your children a lot through this process. Jordan, how do you feel like your sort of skills and what you've developed in terms of dog fostering, how do you feel like that's transferred to other areas of your life? Can you guys hear me?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, that's
now
okay.
I can.
You can hear me now? Okay, no worries. I was asking Jordan, and I'm not sure at what point you lost me, but the question is, how has fostering the skills that you've learned and sort of developed through that process, how do you see those skills having transferred to other areas of your life? Are they still having trouble hearing me?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So fostering, yeah, it's definitely taught me a lot. Like I said earlier, responsibility and patience, those were two big ones. And it's definitely transferred into other parts of my life. So like responsibility within my own life and just like, having discipline. Because with the dogs that we foster, you need to be responsible feeding them, taking them on walks, or just like even playing with them sometimes and just looking out for them and being a good caretaker while they're trying to find a home. And patience is another big one. A lot of the dogs that we've fostered, there's been some really, really shy dogs that we've had. And the shy dogs definitely teach me a lot. And like my whole family, just like having to wait for the dog to become comfortable. That has also taught me just to be patient with other things in life. Like you can't just expect things to come real quick. Some things do take time, just like the shy dogs. And yeah.
Absolutely. So you guys are talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, Piper, go ahead.
Right now, Jordan has a dog that was from a hoarding situation. She was one of 34 dogs. So when she came to us, we got 4 of the dogs. They were all pretty much like feral, and she's had this little girl now for probably a month, and I mean they still can't pick her up or anything. She's still really scared, but she's kind of learning. Yeah. So it's a long process for some of these dogs.
Patience for sure, right?
Huh?
I said patience for sure, right?
Yeah.
So you guys talked about, obviously the responsibility that it takes to be a foster, and let's switch kind of to irresponsibility for a minute. When you talked about overpopulation, its effects on the dogs, and we know because everything's interconnected, its effect on all of us and on the environment. You talked about some of the causes: unfit owners, failure to keep dogs indoors, not spaying and neutering, and you both have alluded to irresponsible breeding. Now that's something I think the layperson might think of as puppy mills, but obviously we know that irresponsible breeding can take place on a on a much smaller level. Can the both of you talk to us for a moment about irresponsible breeding, both small scale and mass operations?
Sure. So it's called backyard breeding. And so basically what these people want to do is have continual litters of puppies and just to make a profit off the babies. And most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, these puppies aren't going to have their shots. They live outside. They've got worms. They've got fleas. These are really sick dogs. And the people who are selling them, that they just want to offload them, and they will oftentimes know that they are sick. So if a puppy has parvo and they know it, they will give it something to, maybe some sugar or something to get rid of that lethargy, and sell it, make that transaction, never, and then block that person's number and hide. Like, I mean, I see it all the time. And these are dogs that are sold on Craigslist, any of those online marketplace sites. And it's really sad because people are looking for a family dog. A lot of people don't understand that Craigslist dogs, this is what they're doing. And so they end up getting a dog that dies a day later or even a couple of hours later, after spending not only money on the dog, but then thousands at the vet. Or they don't have the money to treat the dog, and then that dog ends up maybe in a dumpster. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that those people are doing that, but they can end up at the shelter, and then the shelter is just going to put them down. So I get a lot of calls from people like this, and we do what we can to save those dogs, but a lot of times they die, and it's really sad. So I really urge people, if you want a puppy, just be patient. Don't go. I hear this all the time. People will text me and say, hey, do you have any puppies? And I say, no, not right now, but I'm going to soon. And then they go and get one from Craigslist, and they get a sick dog. So it's super irresponsible. These people they don't care. And I've been to the houses before of these people, and I mean, it's disgusting. It's disgusting and the poor parents, the poor dogs the moms that have to keep doing this over and over again, having these babies, bonding with them, and then just losing them, and they're given away way too young, like 4 weeks. It's just really sad. They're kept in terrible conditions. It's no life, whether it's a puppy mill or a backyard breeder. It's really sad.
Piper, what laws do you think we still need to fight for to help protect those most vulnerable, those little souls?
I think that there are laws in place, but they're not being enforced. I mean, I feel like, to be honest, the responsible owners are being punished. Say, I mean, these people are getting door knocked because one dog isn't licensed in their house, and they're getting fined. And then there's people who are just like breeding dogs over and over again, and they don't get touched. And I really don't understand why that is. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I feel like there are laws in place, but I think that some cities have mandatory spay and neuter, but I don't even know how they're enforcing that. I don't think there's any way. I mean, it's extremely easy to hide a dog,
right,
and not follow the laws. So I don't know. I don't know if laws are the answer, right?
Right. No, you're right. Because if enforcement and, for whatever reason, it's not just about the law being in place.
Like, you have to have a license. You have to have a breeding license, and people are doing it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So talk to us about, I think Army's picture really stuck with me, not just from today's presentation, but I had seen him on social media before. Talk to us about a dog like Army. What is the financial impact on Hand and Paw of taking care of just one dog like that who's really sick?
Yeah. Yeah. He cost a lot of money. I mean, I would say he didn't cost as much as some of ours, because a lot of times when we get them from Mexico, they'll have TBT, which is a cancer. So, you know, we have to do chemo, and we get several dogs like that. So that's like $5,000. Army, he required a lot of lab testing because we had to like biopsy his skin. He needed he needed weekly baths, and then he's on medication. So, I mean, he's expensive, but he's not as extensive as a lot of the other dogs that we've gotten. Bonsai was a lot of money. Also, I would say the most expensive cases we get are the ones that come in blind, because we have done 3 dogs. We decided to get them cataract surgery. So we got them new lenses in their eyes. So they go from completely blind to perfect vision, and that costs like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 sometimes. So, I mean, we take on the dogs that need the most help, so it's going to cost a lot of money, but to me, that's what's most needed. I don't feel like, I don't know, I feel better about, I guess when I see a dog that is an extreme case like that, I just feel responsible. Like, I feel like no one else is going to step up for them, so I'm going to make it work no matter what.
And you guys
and I depend on
rely on donations for this kind of
100%. Yeah, we don't get any grants or any sort of help from the government. It's just purely the generosity of others. So
absolutely. I wanted to give Brooke an opportunity. She had a couple of questions for you guys. Brooke, are you ready?
Yes, my first grade teacher just had a question, Miss Rappley, and so she says that she's want to ask if you have training classes for families that want to foster dogs. And I know she has 2 dogs, so she says, so she was asking about training classes.
I'm so sorry, the audio is not working.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Adriana. I can hear you now. Brooke, can you try one more time? I'm sorry.
Perfect.
My first grade teacher, Ms. Rappley, just had a question. She wants to know if there are training classes for families that want to foster dogs.
Piper, were you able to hear Brooke that time?
Is it training people to foster dogs? Is that what the question was?
Yeah.
Yeah, so her first grade teacher was actually wrote in and was wondering what kind of training classes are available, either from you guys or what you recommend for people that want to foster dogs.
Yeah, I don't typically, I mean, I don't have like a specific training class, but when it comes to fostering, we supply everything, and then I mean, I come over and kind of walk you through it. It's really not that hard. Bed and food and some love, really, and that's it. But yeah, I always go to the foster house and help facilitate everything.
Great. Brooke, what else do you have for us?
I did have a question. When you rescue dogs from other countries, how do you know if they'll survive the trip back?
That's a good question, and it really stresses me out because you know, when we get dogs from like Iran, sometimes they'll go from Iran to Turkey to Germany to here, and they're not even allowed to leave the cage once they enter in Iran. So they're in the cage sometimes for well over 24 hours, and they're not allowed to have food or water. And I don't know, the way they do it there is so much different than they do it here. Like here, you have to have a layover, and they have to take the dog out of the cage and walk it and let it have a potty break. So when the dogs get here, yeah, I mean, we've never had an issue with them surviving, but yeah, I'm stressed out because I feel really bad for those dogs. They're sitting in there and they're going to the bathroom on themselves, and they come pretty filthy. And yeah, unfortunately, they don't really care as much about the dogs. So it's sad, but at least when they arrive here, they're onto a better life.
Yeah, I just feel really bad for those dogs. I thought maybe they would take a little bit more care when they're transporting the dogs, but it doesn't seem like they do that. I mean, just locking them in a cage for over days.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's hard because I really try to help the dogs in Iran, but they have so many laws now, and they shut down the border right when I was about to get, I think, 4 dogs from there. They shut down the border and stopped all flights coming to the U.S. So I feel like I left these dogs hanging, unfortunately, and I don't know what happened to them. But yeah, it's pretty bad over there. They really hate dogs. They see them as like these dirty, gross things. So
Piper, was
yeah, I don't
the
know. There's
was the flight shutdown related to COVID-19, or was this a prior situation?
it was COVID the second time. The first time it was that plane crash. I don't know if you remember back in, I think it was January. So that started it, and then when the borders reopened, then COVID hit and they shut it down again. So
how has the pandemic affected or impacted Hand and Paw? You mentioned earlier it's easier to get the dogs from, not easier, but preferable right now to get the dogs from Mexico because shelters here are shut down. So talk a little bit about what your work looks like right now.
right now, I cannot get enough dogs in with, I mean, every single dog that I put on social media, I'm getting like 100 applications. And so there are a lot of pissed off people because I don't have enough dogs and I just can't get them in fast enough. And unfortunately, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, I'm taking dogs from Tijuana that are medical dogs. And so they're not going to be ready immediately and people get really impatient. But, you know, these dogs need help and I'm not going to like just take the easy ones. I mean, it'd be nice. But it's just hard right now and the shelters are super difficult and it's really doing a disservice to the dogs, particularly around 4th of July, because with all the people that still don't know that they need to keep their dogs safe, there's so many dogs running around and the shelters aren't even doing any intake. So I don't understand. Like they're not doing pickups. They're just telling people to leave the dogs on the street. Like the shelters have really dropped the ball, and I don't know what they're doing. I don't even feel like they care, to be honest. I see very apathetic animal control workers. They just don't. There's no real kindness or compassion. They're really just doing it because that's their job.
Yeah, that's so sad.
In my experience.
I know that the pandemic is kind of forcing consumers to remain isolated. So I think on the surface, people might think, oh, this is a great time to be, you know, a stray dog because more people are searching for animal companions. But I appreciate you talking about some of the barriers and some of the hurdles, but also this makes me think about the unfit owners that you talked about. I have to wonder if, you know, after whenever that might be, things kind of return to normal. People that have been home and thought that they could take care of a dog are really trying to balance more with work. And so talk to us a little bit about, you know, somebody making a kind of a rash decision in a pandemic that dog ownership, dog companionship is for them. Do you think there will be sort of a backlash from that?
I think there will be in some instances, not with mine, not with the dogs that I've adopted out, because I made sure like that's part of my interview process during this whole thing is that they just don't want a dog for this short. Sure, if they want to foster, that's fine. It can be a short-term foster thing, but in terms of adoption, I always make sure that they're committed and not just using this opportunity to have a friend. I mean, like I said, unless they're going to foster. So, and I have a lot more foster applications, which is good.
Great.
But yeah, I don't see it happening in terms of returning dogs.
Great.
For me.
what can kids do? So we have kids that are watching this event and they might be looking to become foster families. I think that you've made it clear that that is the number one way to help your dogs. Talk to us for just a moment about the other ways that kids can help.
Well, when this is all over, I have adoption events every weekend. And I love having volunteers for that. And basically it's just sitting in the dog pen and petting dogs all day long and giving them love, and sometimes, interacting with the new potential families. And yeah, it's a good way to kind of just see how things work and get some love in. But that's a really good way to support too. And then other ways, with social media, just sharing dogs that need help, sharing a dog that needs a foster, because that's really what built this whole rescue, was word of mouth and social media. So I'm really grateful for that.
So for our audience, if you're old enough to have social media, if not, your parents can do this for you. You can follow Hand in Paw Rescue on Facebook at Hand Paw Rescue and on Instagram at Hand in Paw. Piper, is there any other sort of platforms or ways that you would like our audience to get in touch or find out more about your mission?
Our website, I can always be reached. Is that what you're asking me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If they don't have social media, you mean? Yeah. My website is www.handinpawrescue.com, and you can go on there and fill out a little inquiry form, and you can email me through there too. I'm always available.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. And for all of our sorry, Piper, we have a delay. Go ahead.
No, I was done. Go ahead.
All good. Okay. For all of our environmental scouts followers, you can visit our website for 9 activities that you can do to be a change maker related to pet rescue. And I just want to thank Piper and Jordan for joining us for our very first environmental change maker episode. Thank you for all the work you do and for sharing your story. We hope that others are inspired by hearing your story and your doggie's story. And also, fans, everyone out there, you can join us all next week at 10 a.m. as our series continues. Tomorrow, I'll actually get the honor to talk with youth activists and Re-Earth co-founders, Shia Bastida and Joseph Wolkanowski, and we will be discussing their work as climate activists. So thank you so much. Piper, Jordan, thank you. Brooke, you did awesome. See you guys later.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.